Hey everybody, I'm the Cinematic Critic, and I am looking so forward to returning to reviewing with Ted 2 next week. Although, and this is not a promise, I may actually go see Inside Out or Spy tomorrow. But I figured that I would warm up by doing a review of anime. And yes, I did, for those of you who saw it, I did just do this last night, but I didn't do it all that well. And this is practice for my upcoming reviews because I've really got to get passionate about doing these movies reviews. So let's get into it and let's redo what I did yesterday. The anime I'll be talking about in this order: Inuyasha, Inuyasha the Final Act, Naruto, Rock Lee and his Ninja Pals, Naruto Shippuden, Bleach, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, Gurren Lagann, Eureka 7, Samurai 7, Samurai Jack, Thundercats, Soul Eater, Space Dandy, Durara, Deadman Wonderland, Death Note, Black Lagoon, Blue Exorcist, and there's one where this space kid attracts the girls. Now, I will give you a warning that some of these I don't even remember that much. I've completed them all, but some of these I don't remember many aspects from, which you can tell that's what I thought of them, honestly. Other of these I'm still watching, and some of them I really remember. So why don't we get started? We're going in that order. We're going to start out with Inuyasha. Inuyasha was a very interesting anime because there's something you have to know about a lot of animes, and that's that demons aren't the bad guys, always. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. Inuyasha, and before I go any further, I actually happen to be a Christian. We'll get to that when I get to Blue Exorcist later. But anyway, this is fantasy. It's fake. What do you expect? Anyway, Inuyasha is about a half-demon who is on a quest to find something called the Shikon Jewel. And he can use the Shikon Jewel to turn into a full-fledged demon. Now, is it that simple? Of course not. There's a girl that actually betrayed him, and spoiler alert, we find out that that's not really the case. I'm not going to do what I did last night in that last night's video and go into the whole story. I'm just going to tell you the basic setup, that there are two girls, one's named Kikyo, one's named Kagome. Kikyo is basically dead, but this is an anime, so she comes back as a spirit. And Kagome, the actual main character, is actually from the future. She gets transported back in time from this magical well, the Bone Eater's Well as it's called, back in time to the feudal era where she sees this half-demon stuck to a tree, basically. And I won't say how he got there. Actually, yes, I will. Kikyo. He got there by Kikyo. And that's how the anime actually opens up, with her shooting and sticking into the tree, and she says, I've used all my power, now I'm going to die. And it's like, where did this come from? And we find out later in the series that it was all a trick. A trick by who? By the villain. The villain's name, Naruto, is also a half-demon. He too wants to use the Shikon Jewel, but for total different purposes. Now, what makes this anime so good is, despite Inuyasha starting to seem out like a bad guy, not the bad guy, but we find out that that's not the case at all. In fact, he originally had good intentions. His original intention was to use the Shikon Jewel to go not full demon, but full human, because he was in love with Kikyo. So why did she betray him? The answer? She didn't. It was that bad demon I mentioned, Naruto. Naruto actually tricks Inuyasha into thinking that she's going to betray him, so he in turn betrays her, and she thinks she's been betrayed, so they think they've betrayed each other, and that's how the start begins. And then they find this out. They find out that the spirit Kikyo and the living Inuyasha find out, oh my god, that was a twist that I didn't see coming, honestly. So it's like, yeah, Inuyasha is a good guy. Along with Kagome, we see these other demons that are friends with them. We've got Shippo, who's a fox demon. We've got, and I don't mean the nine-tailed fox you see in Naruto either. Um, we've got a demon, I think it's a demon dog that is actually friends with the demon slayer that they meet, Songo. We've got a monk named Moroku. We've got a whole bunch of other side characters. Surprisingly, you never see Inuyasha's father all that much except in flashbacks. What you do see is you see Inuyasha's full demon brother. And his constant thing is he's after Inuyasha's sword Tetsaiga, because he believes he's the rightful owner of Tetsaiga. Because he has a sword called Tenseiga, and it heals while Inuyasha's sword does damage. And it's ultimate. He's ultimately like, I should be the one with the damaging sword. The one that can cut things. I'm the one who's the full-fledged demon. And the whole series just goes on. The main thing is them fighting Naraku, but there are a whole bunch of moments in this series. There are moments where it's funny. It really is a funny series, but be warned, it does have its dark moments too. It does have its serious moments. Obviously, Inuyasha starts falling in love with Kagome, because one of the running things is that Kagome is supposedly the reincarnation of Kikyo. And maybe that's why Inuyasha finds himself attracted, because earlier in the series, yeah, he wants to, like, he still feels, especially after he finds out he was tricked, he still feels like he's in love with Kikyo. So he does find it a little hard to get into Kagome, but eventually, they all live happily ever after. I won't say what ends up happening to Naraku, because the ending is very interesting. Does Naraku die? You be the judge. That's the thing about these animes. You can never really tell how they are. Certain ones you can. This one, it's open for debate, and I haven't given much away. There are still so many things that happen in these two animes. The final act definitely hurries things up a little bit, but that's because it's only 26 episodes, and they really wanted to complete the story, and they do. And it's very good. And while I may have given you some spoilers, it's definitely worth checking out. The next one is Naruto. Naruto. My favorite anime right now. I had favorite animes before this, but this one just pushed me out of the way. This one has done something no other anime has been able to do yet. And that is, it convinced me to watch it in Japanese. That's right. I got up to the English dub limit, and I said, no, I can't wait anymore. I'm moving forward. I'm going to watch it in Japanese. It's the only one to do that so far. I tried to watch Sword Art Online Season 2, but, it's airing on TV right now in English dub. But I couldn't get into it. I couldn't get into it in subs. Anyway, about the anime. Basically, and I can kind of relate to the first couple episodes in Naruto, having been teased myself. Basically, Naruto is teased a lot because, although this obviously is not what happened to me, he's got a demon sealed inside of him, the nine-tailed fox demon. If you were up to date with the show, then you know the real name, and I'll get to that. But first, Naruto, in the Naruto series, he's got this demon sealed up inside of him called the nine-tailed fox, and the nine-tailed fox attacked the village years ago. The village hidden in the leaves, and he was beaten, but not killed. He's sealed inside a baby, and that baby is Naruto. Now, years later, Naruto is actually growing up, and no one pays attention to him because he's got the demon sealed inside of him, even though the demon is supposedly not able to get out. But, of course, everyone teases him, And it doesn't focus on the demon all that much in this series. It really focuses more on how Naruto is teased and Naruto's personality. Naruto is a goofy kid where even if that demon wasn't inside of him, he probably would have been teased. So I still kind of found a way to relate to him because I was a teaser as a kid. And the way he goes about it, though, it's so funny. He's again like me. He really didn't care what other people thought, and then over time he came to make friends with people, and he makes friends with Sasuke and Sakura, and Kakashi Hatake is his teacher, so to speak, his sensei. And they form Team 7, and yeah, we all know where this is going. And it's really a great film. It's really great for kids, up to a point. When we get into the Chunin exam arc, that's when things start to get serious. And so I'm going to skip the first two tests and talk about what happens in between. We're talking about Jiraiya's sensei. You know, Kakashi goes to train Sasuke, and Jiraiya comes to train Naruto, and basically says the plan is to try to get Naruto to master his Nine Tails power. Because he's really kind of weak. Sorry to say it. Very strong, but he's kind of weak physically. And the way they go about that is they put him through special training where Jiraiya actually, in one episode, pushes him off a cliff, and Naruto has to try to save himself. And the way he does this is, and he goes inside of his mind, or body, or whatever it is, and he goes in there, and he actually finds and meets the nine-tailed fox demon that's locked up inside of him. Like, he's literally in a cage. And it's funny because this is just the character Naruto is. He demands that the Nine-Tailed Fox give him some of his chakra as rent. That's a word. And sure enough, the Nine-Tails doesn't like this, but he complies. And I'll get to why later. You can tell this is one of my favorite ones, and I'm still skipping over several story arcs, but basically the Chunin exams go on. You know, Naruto fights with the power. There's an attack, I won't say by who. It's not I'm not talking about the Orochimaru one. I will say who. Gaara. And it's very interesting because what ends up happening with Gaara is, well, I'll tell you when we get into Shippuden episodes. But anyway, what ends up happening with Naruto is the Nine-Tails sees this as his chance to try to break free of Naruto. And basically, I think if he breaks free of Naruto, Naruto dies, but of course, he'll be free. And as we find out later, if the Nine-Tails is ever extracted from Naruto, Naruto will die. So I assume if he breaks free, that's why I assume that Naruto would die as well. But anyway, Nine-Tails fails, and he's sealed back in, and Naruto has to find a way, again, once more, as the series goes on, to try to use that power, now being sure to not let the Nine-Tails out. And the rest of the series is pretty much like that. Obviously, there is the big elephant in the room, which I do have to address before moving on, and that's the series does get a little dark towards the end when Sasuke leaves to join Orochimaru. But and Naruto once more in that epic fight gives in to the Nine-Tails power once again, and ultimately is able to come out of it. But that's really the final straw where Jiraiya Sensei says, we've got to teach you to control this. And that's what Shippuden becomes about. Shippuden becomes about how Naruto went away for 2 years to train to try to learn to use the Nine-Tails power without letting the Nine-Tails out. And he gets up to 3 tails worth of power. But whenever he transforms into the 4 tails, he or whenever he gets Four Tails out of his, when he gets to the Four Tails transformation, then he loses control, and he has to be suppressed. And the series goes on with him with several instances. The reason I talk about the Nine Tails chakra so much is because of what ends up happening to the Nine Tails, and I'll get to that. One arc that absolutely has to be talked about in the Shippuden series, though, is the arc with Pain, because it's the arc where Naruto finally becomes the hero of the Hidden Leaf Village, and I won't say how he does it. Let's just say that Pain is not the villain you expected him to be. Well, that's one of the things I love about animes. All the bad guys, if done right, have a good backstory. So even if they are the bad guys, even if you want them to lose, you can't help but feel for them. And that is totally true with Pain. And there are many cases in this series of good guy goes bad, and vice versa. And sometimes, like in Sasuke's case, good guy goes bad, then goes good again, then, if I understand correctly about what's coming up in the future, goes bad again, then good again. So, yeah, you can imagine that's a little bit of a ride. But anyway, skipping ahead, the next thing, we're introduced to this character named Killer Bee. And he basically is the Eight Tails Jinchuriki. That is, he is the master of the Eight Tails beast. But there's a catch. He has actually befriended his Eight Tails beast. So to go talk about Gaara real quickly, Gaara actually did use his one-tailed beast. But was he friends? Not exactly. And once more, we'll get to that later. Also, in the beginning of Shippuden, in the very first arc, he actually has the one-tailed beast extracted, and that's what the whole series is about. How these Akatsuki want to basically get all nine-tailed beasts to do something, and we don't know what that is until later in the series. But whatever it is, it can't be good. And yes, that will include they want Naruto's Nine Tails. But anyway, getting back to Killer Bee and the Eight Tails, they're friends. And the second that plot twist came along, I knew that was going to happen, because that's just the type of person Naruto is. I knew he was going to try to befriend the Nine Tails. And sure enough, skip a couple episodes later, the fourth great ninja war is looming, and here we go. It's Naruto against the Nine Tails. The Nine Tail he goes inside of himself yet again, and this time he unlocks the door he unlocks the cage, or whatever you want to call it, that seals Naruto, see, I keep wanting to say his actual name, but I'm not ready to do that yet. He seals the Nine Tails inside of him, so he unlocks that, and then he fights the Nine Tails inside of him. And it's not a giant epic battle, not as much as some of the other ones you see in Naruto, so don't be too disappointed. It does have a lot of moments in it, but for what it's worth, it was definitely worth looking at the 2 or 3 episodes that it happens in. And he ultimately ends up defeating the Nine Tails and actually getting use of his power. So let's skip ahead a bit. We're looking at the war arc now. You know, everyone is battling. The new person in Team 7, Sai. You know, we got a couple of funny arcs with him, like how he was part of Foundation and how that's disassembled now because he's like, you know, I don't want to be part of Foundation anymore. I want to be part of Team 7. I want to. And he's a very complex character. So a lot of these characters are. I didn't even get into Iruka Sensei or the guy who does the wood style. I'm sorry, I can't think of his name right now. But the guy who does the wood style, who is Kakashi's friend and helps Naruto train. Anyway, moving on. As the war begins, Naruto finally gets to the battlefield and he starts using his newfound power to help everybody, and then one day the Eight Tails makes a realization that Naruto has been using too much power. And usually when you use that much power, don't mind me, I'm just making sure my computer doesn't go to sleep. Usually when he uses that much power, the Nine Tails comes out. And the Nine Tails tries to escape. But the Eight Tails makes the realization that he's not trying to do that. And it's like a whoa moment. Like, just for record, the Nine Tails does see everything Naruto does, because what do you expect? He's trapped inside of him. And this is interesting because, like I said, here we go. This is the moment where they're gonna talk and become friends. And it does take a couple of episodes, and it's done very wisely. The way I thought it was going to be done was Naruto was going to forgive the Nine Tails for killing his parents in the attack on the village when he was a baby, and that would have been interesting to me. But they did it so much better. They actually gave I'm going to say it now. They gave the Nine Tails a backstory. We find out from the Four Tails, that the Four Tails has a name. His name is Son Goku, and he reveals that the Nine Tails also has a name, and Naruto is surprised by this and wants to know what it is, and it's Kurama. And I've been calling him Nine Tails for the whole review, but the truth is, I refuse to call the Nine Tails Kurama now. The Nine Tails may be what he is, but who he is Kurama. And we get this through a backstory. We get it from his point of view of how he's actually been watching everything Naruto does. We get the whole point of view of how he was secretly seeping his own chakra through, making Naruto more powerful this whole time, all so that he could try to break free. And then during the pain arc, he does break free, but he is resealed. I won't say how, I don't want to spoil that. Let's just say it has something to do with Naruto's parents. And no, it's not the part where they die. They die in episode 1, unfortunately. But we find out through all this series that Kurama actually had a motivation to do that. So it wasn't just I know him attacking the village was wrong. It's totally wrong. But his motivation was, when the attack actually started, he was actually being controlled by someone named Madara Uchiha, who was actually controlled to attack the village. And when he breaks free of that control, he's so mad that he keeps going. Now, it's true, keeping going is the wrong thing to do, but the fact is that he was being used by his eyes, he was being used by humanity, and that's what made him mad. And whether or not it was right, that gave him a motivation. And that backstory actually made you feel a little sad for him, honestly. Yes, his is a character where you go from good guy to bad guy. The same was true with the Eight Tails. The Eight Tails did the exact same thing with his village. And his Jinchuriki had the same issue. And we get to see we get to see Naruto go through this. We get to see him a couple episodes later. Kurama comes to the understanding, you hear that he's done it the wrong way, and Naruto's like, I can help you, we can be friends, we can be partners, we can go together. You say you're hatred incarnate, and he does say it. He says he is hatred incarnate. He's pure hate. And hate is really, one of the main characters in the Pain arc is called Hatred. Hatred is really something that's front and center in Naruto, and Naruto, I guess, is supposed to represent love or something. Or dreams, maybe, is better, because he's always dreaming about how he's going to become a Hokage someday. And I just love that, because the way he ends up convincing Kurama is like, I will take away your hate someday. And at first Kurama's like, you can't do that, but as it goes on, he starts to believe, we find more about Kurama's background. We find that as a young-tailed beast, I guess you could be a young-tailed beast. He actually knew this guy named the Sage of the Sixth Path, and the Sage of the Sixth Path said someday that all nine-tailed beasts would come across this one person who would want to help them, that would want to set them free. And Naruto is obviously that person, and he comes to realize Naruto is that person, and he's able to, you know, start helping Naruto out. It's rough at first, and that's where we're at in this series, and it's come to the point where you really got to watch it, you really got to experience it yourself, and it's amazing how it can go from Kurama being this nine-tailed fox demon who attacks the village to Kurama, who is Naruto's partner and is helping attack the bad guy, the real bad guy, Madara Uchiha, who wants to put the world in this infinite... sorry, it's a Japanese thing. Basically, he wants to put them all in a trance to think that the world is perfect, but it would all be a dream. It wouldn't be the real world. I don't want to be in that, do you? And the way he does this is, unfortunately, and these are the last episodes that have aired up to date, is Kurama has actually been taken out of Naruto, and it sucks because they were just starting to get along. They were just starting to fight together. They were just... Kurama is my favorite anime character ever. Definitely my favorite case of... Naruto is a close second, but I'm sorry, but there's just something about the Kurama character that I really like. As a character. But that's where we're at in Naruto and Naruto Shippuden. And they're running filler right now. And today is Thursday, which means there was supposed to be a new episode. But, oh, guess what? They decided not to do a new episode this week. So, not only do we not have filler, but we don't have a new episode and we don't move forward. And, I mean, they're supposed to release a film that they say is going to be canon to the series in August. How are you going to do that if the series is still running? Because it's supposed to take place after the series, after the 4th Great Ninja War concludes. So, I've got to guess, I think Madara is going to be defeated for what it's worth. I know I talked about that one for a long time, but I did say it's my favorite anime. Definitely worth checking out. Now, if you're a little kid, might want to stop after the first series and wait it to grow up a little bit to watch the second series. The first series is very happy-go-lucky. The second series, darker, more serious. Still has its funny moments, still has its filler arcs that are laugh-out-loud hilarious. But, speaking of laugh-out-loud hilarious, I skipped over Rock Lee and his ninja pals. This is meant to be hilarious. Every episode is hilarious. It's a spin-off of Naruto, and it takes place, actually, in between Naruto and Naruto Shippuden. And the main star is not Naruto, it is Rock Lee. And Rock Lee is just a funny character to begin with, except when he's serious, because he can get really serious. Like, really, really serious. When he gets really, really serious, it's still funny. You know? You know what I mean? He's basically this workhorse who never stops, because he only knows taijutsu. He doesn't know genjutsu. He doesn't know ninjutsu. He only knows taijutsu. That is, he can only do physical things, and yet he still wants to be a ninja. And that's great. And in the series, it doesn't focus on that so much as... It's, just a comic, like every other episode, he pretends to use ninjutsu or genjutsu. More often genjutsu, which is funny because not many people know genjutsu. I would say more people know ninjutsu than genjutsu, because genjutsu is the mind, ninjutsu is like using your chakra. Like Naruto is a ninjutsu user. But anyway, he constantly... Just to give you an idea, I'll talk about one episode of that. It's called I Dream of Taking the Nine Tails for a Walk. Now, keep in mind, this is in between Naruto and Naruto Shippuden, so the Nine Tails is still a bad guy. He's still just the Nine Tails in this. And basically, in the episode, Naruto and Rock Lee switch bodies. It's a very hilarious setup. I mean, you've got a narrator, for goodness sakes, and there are constant fourth wall jokes. Constant. Every episode has a fourth wall joke. Really. And it is very, very funny. But anyway, in this episode, when they switch bodies, Rock Lee gets pulled into Naruto's body, and the Ninetales is able to easily convince him to open the gate and let the Ninetales out. And Naruto and Rock Lee's body has to try to stop this because, if the Ninetales gets out, his body is dead, and Rock Lee will probably be dead because Rock Lee is in Naruto's body. It's just a very hilarious setup, and Orochimaru is a badass. He is a badass, but when you watch, and I'm sorry for my language, but it's true, and he's also very sneaky and cunning throughout Naruto and the beginning of Naruto Shippuden, and even now that he's back in late Naruto Shippuden as a bad guy gone good. Didn't see that coming. And I didn't even touch upon, by the way, in Shippuden, the whole Sasuke aspect with him and his brother and how he comes back to being a good guy and how in the future, I've read ahead, he'll go back to being a bad guy for a couple episodes, then coming back to being a good guy. Not really a bad guy, but But anyway, Orochimaru is a bad guy in this series. In Rock Lee, he is hilarious. Everything serious about him is gone. He constantly fails. He's not smart at all. It's Kabuto, his assistant, who has to constantly get him out of jams. Rock Lee is the one who always figures him out, or if not figuring him out, Tenten usually does that actually. Is the one who exposes him accidentally. It's one of those just so funny. It's only a couple episodes. Well, it's only like 20-something episodes long, and it is definitely worth a check if you want a laugh. If you don't want to laugh, I don't think it's considered canon, because nothing that happens in that really impacts Shippuden, but so worth a laugh. Alright, we'll move on to Bleach. Moving on to another anime that, this was another one of the ones that I first watched. Not one of the ones I first completed, but one I first watched. Bleach, actually, I recently went back and watched the first couple hundred episodes, and I hated the first couple hundred episodes. It's interesting because there are so many arcs later in that series that are really, really good. So the fact to go watch and be the beginning and it's based on the plots it's set up, I would actually say skip the starting arcs. Just know that Ichigo is a Soul Reaper. Started at episode 100 something after they've accepted the fact that he is a substitute Soul Reaper. Because the whole thing about that, about the battle of the substitute Soul Reapers, how one Soul Reaper befriends him and is therefore supposed to be killed, I guess, and then it all turns out to be a plot, and this Soul Reaper has to go to the Soul Society. Ichigo, the substitute Soul Reaper, has to go to the Soul Society and try to fight them or convince them that it's okay, and it's just a terrible first opening. I know there are people who will get into that, but I got much more into when they accepted him as a substitute Soul Reaper and started sending him on missions. Very interested. You've got the ones about the Iran cars. You've got there's seriously 3 arcs about that. You've got or four might have been. There's these ones where they take over Mundo, the town that he's in. There's countless different adventures I could go into that happen in this. There's even a final arc that's very interesting where they supposedly can get their Soul Reaper powers. He loses his Soul Reaper powers at the end of the second to last arc, and supposedly he can actually get his powers back by joining this group. And this is the one that I really remember, probably because it was so bad and had such a disappointing ending. I'm sorry. Now the series as a whole, once that was finished, the last couple of episodes, they find a way to grant Ichigo full Soul Reaper status, just like I guess his father had that. And it's definitely worth a look at if you're into classic anime and action. But story wise, I didn't love it. But moving on to Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, this has a soft spot because this was the first anime I ever actually completed. I did see the first one. The first anime I ever saw was probably Specks of Bleach, but only Specks, maybe an episode. And I saw an episode of Fullmetal Alchemist once. Now, I have never seen anything but one episode of Fullmetal Alchemist. Why? Because I just found this out recently, actually. Fullmetal Alchemist does not follow the original manga. It deviates about halfway through, and people were pissed at that. So they came out with something called Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, and it ran parallel to the manga, and the manga is like the original story, and it ran to that. I guess it's like a magazine, but it's a comic book kinda. But anyway, it ran more like that, and was a much better success, and it's the one I watched. And its setup is basically, there are no demons in this, but there are bad creatures. I'll get to them in a minute. They're called homunculi. But at first, it's important to know the setup. This was a very interesting series in that it was really cut into 3 parts or 3 acts, like a movie would be. Like this could be a movie, honestly. That's the way I saw it. A extremely elongated movie. Like you could make a trilogy out of it, and it would be interesting. Anyway, Act 1 is like the setup, of course. You got these 2 brothers. Their father is a state alchemist. He leaves for a long time. Something happens to his mother. Something happens to the boy's mother. And Alphonse and Elric and his brother Edward Elric, they decide that they're going to try to, when she dies, resurrect their mother. Now, the opening of every Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood starts out with some sort of narration, and the one that I remember is the one where they explain the law of equivalent exchange, and the one thing that always sticks out is there is a taboo amongst alchemists. You cannot transmutate. You can't try to bring back humans for what could equal a human soul. And that's ingenious, and that's exactly how the series starts. By these boys trying to use alchemy to bring back... I don't know if it's transmutation that they're trying to do, but I think it is. It's been a while since I've seen the series, but anyway, they try to bring her back. They bring back something, but it's not their mother. It's, so he has to try, and the creature, and what it ends up taking is it ended up taking Edward's brother. It ends up taking Alphonse, and so Edward sacrifices his arm to try to get his brother back, and he succeeds to an extent. So his little brother Alphonse is placed in this giant suit of armor, and that's how they are through the whole series. And the goal becomes not to resurrect the mother anymore. They're done with that. Now that they've been found out, people are like, don't do that. And his goal now is to try to get his brother's try to get their bodies back. He only lost his arm, but his whole brother it's just an essence in a suit of armor. Suit of armor that walks around. He doesn't really have a human body. In fact, he doesn't have a human body. And that's Alphonse. And Edward has a hand that's made of metal, but thus the name Fullmetal Alchemist, actually. It's very interesting. So they go after this thing called the Philosopher's Stone. And as the series goes on, they find that the Philosopher's Stone was actually made by killing people, and that it was made by the bad guys' homunculi. And it's all about, we gotta find out who these homunculi are, and they're drawn into this as they try to find a way to find out how to get their bodies back. They're like, we can't use this that stone. It's killing people, But they ultimately get wrapped up in the plot to try to stop it, and it's amazing how deep it goes. Deep, I mean, into who's involved. If you find out that, again, some of the homunculi are good, but not many. Most of the homunculi are bad. In fact, this series does the opposite. As it goes on, some of the good guys turn out to be bad. And I will give you one example. Just one, but I will give it to you. Pride. Now, I will not say who Pride is as a human, but I will say he is someone that maybe you expect him, maybe you don't, but Pride is the name of a homunculi. He's like the head homunculi, and you would, when it comes, even if you expected it, you don't lie to yourself. It was a little bit of surprise if you saw it. If that comes, it had to have been a little bit of a surprise. But it's very interesting because then it becomes this whole battle to try to stop Pride, this homunculi, from sacrificing all of Ishvala, Ishvala was done years ago, and now he's gonna sacrifice this whole new town, and the race becomes to try to stop him. And in the process, I will say that they do manage to get their bodies back. At the same time, there is a movie afterwards that is canon that finishes the story. So if you watch Fullmetal Alchemist, you'll have to watch that too. We also find out a lot more about the father figure as the series goes on, and why he went away. And like in the case of Kurama, there's a backstory that we didn't know. He was never a bad guy, but we learn that he had a reason for going away, for leaving his family, and that's just I remember this is what ultimately got me interested in an anime. This is what got me to say, yeah, I'll check some of this other stuff out. Now these next ones I'm going to kind of zoom through because I don't remember them that much. Gurren Lagann, I remember the main character's name was Simone. I remember that they wanted to drill to the heavens. They had these they basically live underground because the surface world is unsafe. But in the first episode, they drill through the heavens, and they basically to get up there. I'm going to have to take a pause for a minute, but I will be back with part 2 where I will talk about the rest of my anime. Starting with Eureka 7, Samurai 7, Samurai Jack will do quickly, Thundercats, Soul Eater, Space Dandy, Durara, Demon Wonder Man, Death Note, Black Lagoon, Blue Exorcist. So we still got a little bit to go, but the long part is over because I've talked about the ones I love. The only ones that I'm really going to go long like those ones are, I will talk a little bit about Blue Exorcist and Deadman Wonderland. For now, I'm going to take a quick break.